Shia.
So President Trump says he's going to impose steel tariffs across the
And aluminum.
and aluminum.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean for Illinois, or what could it mean?
So if you didn't hear, the question was about the 25% tariffs that the president has now imposed on steel and aluminum. Just last week, I was visiting a brewery of a startup craft brewer who was telling me that if the aluminum tariff that had been threatened by President Trump was put on, that the cost for him of providing beer in a can would go up substantially and may make it so that they would have to go out of business. It's already expensive. We've got barley that comes across the border from Canada that would be subject to the Canadian tariffs that Donald Trump wants to put on, and add on to it aluminum tariffs, and you're going to put people out of business. These are enormous tariffs, 25%. And it seems to me that this is a tax on working families. This is what Trump is all about. I want to remind you why he's doing this. It is not because he is looking for trade fairness. It appears likely that this is about paying for the tax cut that he intends to provide to the wealthiest Americans. So the effect on all of us and on the entire country is, and particularly working families, is everything's going to cost more. And it's a tax on everybody, again, to pay for what he's going to introduce shortly, which is a tax cut for wealthy people. Yeah.
Could I ask you, reacting to your video on Friday, which was rather however, of course, there is pushback from the Republican Party.
Pushback. It was a humorous video. Go ahead.
Well, Pritzker focused.
You're going to give them time? Okay.
This is their statement. They say that you are focusing on yourself and your kids.
So,
What's that way of saying?
did anyone here see the video? It was intended to inject. It was intended to inject some humor at a moment when I think people don't find much that's going on humorous. So, I was just, talking about something that I thought people would get a little chuckle about over the weekend.
And does that also, you do seem to be one of the most outspoken governors, Democratic governors. Why is that the case? Where are the others?
Well, I think there are a variety of reasons that people haven't spoken out fully. I think part of it is that the American public hasn't yet seen that tomato prices are going up because of the potential for Mexican tariffs on Mexico, products from Mexico. Again, I talked about the beer brewer who is going to have to raise the price of their beer because of the tariffs that the president is putting on. These are all things that are either here or they're coming shortly. And I can see them coming, and I know what the impact will be. People have been promised something by this Trump administration that he is not delivering. They've been promised lower prices. They've been promised lower grocery prices. They've been promised lower gas prices. They've been promised more affordability. And that is precisely the opposite of what's happening. Look at egg prices. And if you want to blame that on the avian flu, fine, but look, he's tearing apart the departments of government that protect us from the avian flu. So prices are going up under this president. The Trump tax on working families is going into effect, and I think you will see real activism at the grassroots level in response to that. So I would like it if more people were speaking out, more elected officials. I will give credit to a couple of senators, Senator Schatz from Hawaii, Senator Kim, the new senator from New Jersey, both of whom have been very outspoken, and a few others. And I think we're going to see more and more of that. And it shouldn't just be elected officials, though. I think it's going to be protests at the street level. Yeah, Chris.
Governor, it's been 3 weeks since the Trump administration has come back into power.
Only 3 weeks.
Only 3 weeks.
A new CBS News poll out yesterday shows that 53% of Americans are supportive of this president at this moment in time. How do you square your, scorched earth sort of approach to how he's governing with the reality that the majority of Americans, at least according to this one poll, think he's doing a good job?
Well, the majority of Illinoisans don't support President Trump and don't support these policies. In addition, I have expressed my personal views about some of the things that he's doing, and importantly, I've expressed what I think is the danger that our residents in our state face as a result of the policies that he's putting in place. So you can look at one poll and say, oh, gee, he's popular in some places in the country. Frankly, I look at what's happening to working class families as a result of his policies, and I'm speaking out about that. Yes, Craig.
What do Democrats need to do more of or better to get that kind of message across? Because, it's not like that poll was just out of anywhere.
Actually, it's the only one that has him at 53%, but go ahead.
But still,
Mhm.
it seems as if Democrats are not able to get their message out as powerfully as maybe you've been able to do it here.
Well, let's be clear, the President of the United States has the biggest bully pulpit of all. And there's no doubt that he's been attempting to flood the zone with a lot of nonsense, which has distracted the media and it's distracted the American public. But I'm laser focused, and I think people, when they go to the grocery store, are laser focused on the costs that this is bringing to American families. And that is what we should be talking about. We should also be talking about the rights that are being taken away from people slowly but surely, and the attack that this president has made on the judiciary. He's in 3 weeks, he's been in office in 3 weeks, he's lost, I think, at least 5 big cases. And that should tell you something about the constitutionality, the unconstitutionality, and unlawfulness that he and President Musk are carrying out. Honestly, I think that we're, as Democrats, we have always been the party that stands up for working class Americans. We have always been the party that stands up for the most vulnerable. And that is precisely who he is hurting every day. You take away funding for programs that fight poverty. You take away funding for Medicaid, Head Start, Meals on Wheels. These are things that affect people we know, people who are in need of a little bit of help. And these are programs that Democrats believe in. And so we're going to speak up loudly about that.
Last one.
Yeah. I'm sorry, what's your first name?
Blair.
Blair. Nice to meet you.
The state is negotiating to build 2 new 1,500 single-cell prisons to rebuild the state built in Logan. The state built is open. It was just filmed about a quarter of that, and Illinois is soon the lowest prison population in about 3 decades. Why continue to build prisons in that state?
Well, we've got to rebuild these prisons in part because some of them are more than 100 years old. And if you want rehabilitation, you're going to have facilities that promote rehabilitation. These do not. There are classes that we want to make sure that people are able to take while they're in prison so that when they get out of prison, they're prepared for a job. People can better themselves while they're in prison so that they'll be better when they're out of prison. We want to make sure that we're keeping our corrections officers safe in those prisons. And that's not the case when there are chunks of cement falling from the ceilings at Stateville. And also, we're looking hard at making sure that we have prisons in locations where the families of the prisoners are able to, reach. That's one issue. The other is, very importantly, we can't attract corrections officers in some parts of the state. It's very, very difficult. And so we're looking at a lot of investments that need to get made. corrections isn't the only department that's been kind of left out and nobody's paid any attention to it for many years. And then to your point about how many cells should there be in a particular prison, which I think is part of your question, the answer is we don't know what the prison population will be going forward. But importantly, we're always looking at making sure that we've got the right amount of beds, but importantly, the right amount of staffing. We all learned, I think, during the COVID-19 pandemic that just because a building happens to have enough beds or rooms in it doesn't mean that it's staffed properly. So you can't really say that those beds are, if they're not staffed, they're not available. So we want to make sure that we're building these new prisons so that they meet the needs of the future. Again, a little unclear from now until then, or some future date 20 years from now, how many prisoners we'll need to make sure that we're housing. But we have a lot of prisons that are in need of investment, and the question we're all going to have to ask is whether or not we can improve those prisons or we're going to have to replace them.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thank you.